happens when you give and give as a parent or a member of society, and essentially it feels like you're being walked all over. You're being taken advantage of. You feel like you always need to be the bigger person. How do you deal with that? And how do you keep the hope and joy alive and positivity alive for your children in this world when they are observing difficult family dynamics? They're observing this world feeling a little hopeless. In today's video, we are going to attempt to tackle this question that was sent in to me from one of my viewers over on my Instagram. So make sure you go and check out my Instagram there if you want to send me a picture, if you want to send me a question, and maybe we can turn it into a whole video just like this one. In today's video, I'm going to teach you what questions to ask yourself when you find yourself in this situation where you really want to retaliate, where you really want to say something that stab them in the heart, but you know that your children are watching, you know that you will regret it and you need to be the bigger person. I want to address that today because we've all experienced some level of this. We want to be better people, but at the same time we're feeling all the emotions of frustration. So if this is you, I got you. Keep watching. But first, hello and welcome. My name is Julie. I hold a doctorate in occupational therapy and I coach moms to go from feeling overwhelmed, struggling to do it all, to feeling calm and confident and truly enjoying their kids' childhoods right alongside them, helping them be more present and just have more joy in their lives. Because really, I want you to be able to have fun with your kids and relish their childhoods, because childhood doesn't keep. If you've been enjoying these videos so far, I highly recommend that you go and check out the previous videos that we have posted, as well as subscribe, like, click the little notification bell, and share this video with anyone that you think may enjoy it. I also have a weekly newsletter and podcast that I send out every Monday, so make sure that you are on that list. All the details will be down below because I add a lot more tips and more in-depth conversations on things that we talk about with regards to parenting and just being the best parent that you can be. We're not into too much of the fluff around here. We go deep, like from day one. So if that's something that you're interested in, make sure you go and check out those links, as well as my Instagram. I'm very active over there. Send me a DM, send me some suggestions of things you want me to talk about. And with all of that said, let's dive into the question of the video. All right, so I'm going to read this question to you that was sent by a friend and a viewer, and you can tell me what you think the answers should be in the comments down below, and I'm going to tell you my take and how you can rise above this. So here's the question. How do you continue being kind and respectful while you are not getting treated equally, or you are being overlooked, and when hope is dwindling and you feel uninspired and unmotivated? I mean, that's a pretty heavy question, right? And there's more. Even when you're not seeing progress and you just have to push through, how do you keep a positive mindset? I don't want my child to learn to give up or feel this feeling of hopelessness in our society. Thank you very much for submitting this question. I must be honest, it took me aback. It took me back. I did not know how to automatically answer this. If you know me in real life, you'll know I have an answer for everything. But this question really required me to think and be introspective and to figure out what I would do in this situation. So I'm going to try my best to answer this question. You let me know how I do. All right, so with any of these tricky dynamics, whether this is with a family member or a close friend, these are the questions that I would ask myself. Number one, where will this get me? You know, I heard this quote, you can either be kind or you can be right. Take those kind of thoughts each way and figure out, how important is it to you to be right or to be kind? Number two, will confronting this situation make things worse for me? So in my mind, there is a fine line between avoiding conflict and being a pushover, which is kind of what her question is hinting at, versus letting it go to protect your own peace. I talk a lot about this, but protecting your peace for me is really important. So I kind of play out the scenarios. If I was to confront somebody and say it is someone close to me, like a family member, someone who's in my life. It's not someone random. We're not talking about road rage. We're talking about people that come in and out of your lives on a daily basis. If it's a family member or a close friend, or maybe it's a work colleague, someone I'm going to see all the time, I really have to make the decision. If I confront this person and make a whole big thing, where will it get me? Now, something that you really have to understand when answering this question is that people don't change. We only change if we want to, but we cannot change other people. So you have to just assume that everyone is going to stay the same and be pleasantly surprised if they change for the better, right? And often that starts with you, ripple effect, okay? So with the idea that people don't change, you're not going to change anybody, what does it help to create a whole big thing? To give away your peace, to give away control, to lose your emotional control? What does it really help? It gives you satisfaction. It feels like an itch that you need to scratch, right? And it feels great in that moment to kind of really be like, I was right, and I'm going to hurt you emotionally. And then what happens? For me, it's worse to raise a ruckus on something that perhaps at the end of the day is like a petty thing. The person doesn't even know that I'm upset with them. You know, it seems kind of risky to do that and create an even bigger explosion, right? Because people typically do the best that they can with the resources and situation that they have. Does that mean that they fall short? Yes. Does that mean that I have fallen short or that you will fall short? Yes, of course. So it's a fine line of trying to teach them a lesson. Remember, unless you are their mother and they're little, they're under 18 years old, you're not really responsible for them. And so is it worth creating a whole thing just for that instant satisfaction? It's almost like, is it worth eating you feel like you don't want to eat, like junk food of some kind, for that sort of minute of satisfaction and then feeling that regret after the fact, right? It's kind of like that. Is it really worth it? So I tend to hold back, and I'm going to explain more about that. As I said before, can I change them? And I will tell you that 99.999% of the time, the answer is no. Maybe 100% of the time. Remembering that people can only change themselves, and you are not responsible for their self-development and growth. You are responsible for your own, and you can shepherd your children. But other than that, you're not responsible for another adult and how they conduct their emotional business. And all you can do is take charge of yourself, remove yourself from the situation, and try again. I also ask myself, what can I be focused on? You know, I spoke about this in my previous video on anxiety. The fact that the more we focus on something, the bigger it gets. So let's use that to our advantage. Let's focus on how this person makes us laugh and be silly, how we can have fun together. Maybe we have to have a more superficial relationship. Maybe this person will never be the person that you wanted. Maybe you need to take a real break from them. And you need to focus on other areas of your life and let those loom large so that this person can kind of fade into the background for right now, because they're not going to change. And that leads me to my last question, which is, do I need this person in my life at all? Now, this is incredibly complicated because this is your mother, or this is your father, or this is a grandparent, or someone very close to you, or even a spouse or a boyfriend, a partner. It might be incredibly hard to extricate yourself. But I do believe that you probably know the right answer. And if it's super intimidating to think, I can never speak to my father ever again, or my grandmother ever again because she's toxic, or whatever the case may be. Maybe that's not forever. Maybe it's for right now. Maybe you just need that separation and that time apart to garner your own strength, to do your own self-development work, to hire a therapist or a coach to really help you navigate these hard relationships, because I think most of us have them. I would also caution you to think about how in this space and time with certain people to learn very specific lessons unique to us. And perhaps there are some very important things that you need to really learn from this relationship, and that is why you have it. So maybe there's a way to turn this around into a blessing of sorts, as painful as it is, because it is there for you to grow and evolve as a spiritual being. So before I lose you on that, let's talk about ways that you can protect your... If I find myself in a situation where I have two choices, one is to have a big conflict and confront the person and feel like I need to fight, and the other one is to take a step back, and I usually take the step back, I remove myself from the situation if I can. I call less. I take time for myself. I focus on my family more, like my immediate family more. I just give myself distance and perspective because time does heal. I need to grieve. I need to grieve what I expected that relationship to be before I can move on to the next tier of myself, right? I need to acknowledge that a person or people are put in my life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And perhaps this was just for a reason, to teach me something. And it's almost not personal. That person is like a vehicle. They're like a tool that the universe or God is using to teach me something that I need to learn. And something else I will say is that until you really learn whatever lesson you need to, or lessons, because there are multiple obviously, that lesson will keep resurfacing. And that's tough. That's a hard pill to swallow. But it is true. Until you really, on a true subconscious soul level, learn a lesson, it's going to keep showing up in your life in different and unexpected ways. So take it seriously, give it some thought, surround yourself by positive resources, and really ask yourself the question, what am I here to learn? And then the second part of her question was like, why even bother? Kind of sounded very despondent. Like, why even bother trying to be positive, trying to be upbeat? You know, when people are negative around you, they want to bring you down with them. There's something in you that's triggering them, that's making them feel less than, and they want you to kind of suffer with them, right? Misery loves company. Now, I would say the reason to bother is because you matter. And yes, this is a channel all about parenting and showing up as your best self, as the best parent you can be, because that is what I believe will make you a better parent. But even if your children did not exist, if they were just never a thing, you should be willing to show up for yourself because you are worth enough just as you are. No children attached. And yes, the byproduct of you showing up for yourself and treating yourself not in a selfish way, not in a conceited way, but in a true I love myself way. When you show up in that way, it comes out of you in everything else that you do, in all these relationships. And you will find that you start to attract people that meet that energy, that meet that vibe of yours, right? And the same happens with your children because they see that you have enough self-respect that you don't sink down to someone's level, right? You show up in the way that is aligned with your values. And sometimes that looks like, you know, taking yourself out of the situation, drawing away. And even if your child is very young and cannot articulate that, I mean, I think it takes time before we even are able to kind of process these more complex emotions. They know on some kind of spiritual, energetic, and subconscious level what you are doing. That you are standing in your truth, that you are protecting your values, that you are protecting them. Because you need to show them that you have their back, that you're standing up for them, you're advocating for them, and you're doing that for yourself as well. And that is an incredibly powerful lesson. So that's why, in my opinion. And then I would also say that one thing that is true is that change is constant, right? Nothing stays stagnant. And even if you're finding yourself in a toxic circle right now, like let's say this is your family, because I have a feeling that this question was coming from a place of family and feeling stuck. And you can't just fire your family, right? Well, yes and no. You don't have to show up fully emotional every time you see them. You don't have to make plans all the time. You don't have to go out of your way to be around them when there's a lot of toxicity. And just because someone is related to you biologically does not mean that you have to hang out with them all the time. You can exercise time and space and choose, right? And that's the power of being an adult. That's the power of taking responsibility and knowing what you need. And your children see that. But as I said, nothing stays the same. Change is constant. And this is probably a phase where you might need to pull back now, you might not be able to do. You might not need to do that later on in life. This may be short term, and then you can go back to being more immersed. Maybe your withdrawal will help them change, or they will say something like, wow, I haven't spoken to you in a while. How's it going? Maybe that space gives you time to grow and emerge as a more mature, confident person who can take some of these criticisms as knowing that it has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with the criticizer, right? So that is really, really important. Your child learns to tackle adversity from you. You are their first teacher. So keep this in mind, not as a pressure, but really as something where we don't need to be hyper-reactive. We can take time and space. We can grow. You know, we can grieve what we don't have and what we may never have, and then we can show up in a way that feels true to us. And that is really, really powerful to pass on to our children and break that cycle of victimness, that cycle of learned helplessness. Super, super powerful when you really think about it. So there you have it. That is my answer to that question. What do you think? Is there a different direction I should have taken this? I would love to know how you would answer that question, and I would love to know what other burning questions you have as related to existentialism and parenting, and what's the thing that keeps you up late at night. Go ahead and subscribe, like this video, click the notification bell, share it with anyone who could benefit, and I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you for giving me your time, your most precious resource. I hope it is time well spent. And remember, Mama, you've got this.